Hey everyone, this is Alyssa Huber of The Life of an Aspie, and welcome to my live stream for the Autistic Gaming Initiative. Today we're going to be talking about autism and self-stigma. But before I begin, I wanted to... Well, first of all, I have to show you a funny meme, because it's funny. Hold on. It makes no sense. And I find it hilarious because it makes no sense. So, I don't think you can water baguettes. Okay, I have a problem. Anyway, yeah, I was a little bit nervous, so I'm a little late starting up. And if anybody's in the chat right now, if you could say something, that would be helpful to help me test out the chat. So, oh, wow, my chats aren't going through. Something weird is going on here. One moment, I want to be able to talk to you guys. Let me start this up again. Hello. Hi. Ah, there's so many people! Yay! Okay, so I haven't done a live stream on camera for a long time, so you probably, if you haven't seen my video about why my hair is short, there's a link in the description somewhere. But yeah, it's starting to grow back. It was completely shaved before, but now it's fuzzy. It feels, well, fuzzy. So, oh, I'm gonna put this hat on though, because it's pretty. No, never mind. You can't see my face as well. That hat, even though it is a cool hat and I really like this hat. Yeah, but before I start talking about the topic, there was, well, there's one more hat I want to show off, and then I'll start talking about the other thing, and then I'll start talking about the actual topic. So I wanted to show off this hat, because my friend Roberto gave it to me, and it's like, it's adorable! It has ears. I like hats with ears. I think they're so cute, even though I've actually never worn hats like that before. So I'm used to it now, and it's like I'll just walk around the house with this hat on and nobody cares. I don't care. I'm trying to not feel self-conscious about doing silly things. So one thing I really wanted to show off, there's this fellow who I keep in contact with named Jonathan Parks, and he sends me Facebook messages with some of his, like, pictures of some of his art that he makes. He does, like, woodworking, and he hand makes a whole lot of stuff, and I just thought it was really cool. And he once sent me this picture of these, they're like stuffed walruses that he hand sewed, and I thought that they were the cutest thing ever. And so I asked if I could buy one from him, and this is it. This is the walrus. It's beautiful. I love the shape of it. I think it's kind of like, I think it's aesthetically pleasing. I can't wait to put this on, like, up on a shelf in my new house. Or my new place where I'm gonna live. So, but yeah, he hand sewed this, and it's made out of denim, like different colors of denim, like white and black and blue. And I have an appreciation for artists who make stuff by hand, and I know hand sewing takes a lot of effort and a lot of time, so I thought that was really cool. I just wanted to show this off. And some of his other art too, I have some pictures. It's in the same category as this meme picture. Hold on. Like, here's another one that he makes, or that he made. It was, it's a peacock. I think this one's really pretty too. He also does, stuff made out of wood. So this is some of his woodworking. And I think it's actually very, very intricate and impressive and kind of cool. And educational. So you can tell the difference between an African lion and an Asiatic lion. And he kind of has this signature thing that I love. I like this reindeer. It's very cute. But he has this sort of signature thing that he does where he puts butts on a lot of his wooden animals, and I think it's just adorable. And it's just like, it's his signature thing. You know it's his if he put a wooden butt on it. And it's, it's so great. And he does a whole bunch of stuff like this. So I just wanted to show those off before I started, because, you know, people on the spectrum, when we create stuff, it's like, when someone's interested in it, it's like, woo! And I think his work is awesome, and it's like, let's show it off to the world, because he does great work. I think it's so cool. So anyway, like I said, today we're going to be talking about autism and self-stigma. And I need to slow down. I'm like kind of nervous right now. I shouldn't be, because I'm normally... Woo! Normally I'm calm, but today it's like my brain was just scrambled like eggs, and so I was trying to sort of throw together some things to talk about. I like already had in my head what I wanted to talk about, but then it just disappeared, so I had to like squeeze it out of my brain. Hello! Jedi Mystic, is that Jesse? I know it must be you. If I'm wrong, I apologize. Hi Donna. Hi, Charles. Oh, and the walrus. Yeah, I know walruses are usually pretty fat, but I just think that this design that he made of the walrus is just very aesthetically pleasing. And I'm gonna set him right here just so you can see him throughout the stream, because it's adorable. So before I started streaming, I did a quick search of, I just typed in autism and self-stigma on Google. And I was surprised, but also not surprised by this. So the first page was mostly about parents and carers of autistic people and like stigma that they face, which is totally valid, but I want to see more about autistic people themselves, because I feel like they struggle from self-stigma. And I should probably define what self-stigma is first, so this makes sense, because you know there's, oh hi, Vincent, how you doing? So, I actually do have I gotta show you another hat. I interrupted myself because Vincent said that, and now I have to show off this other hat that I have. So I actually have a camo hat. I don't have very many clothes that goes with it though. That's the problem. I have only like one outfit, and it's in the laundry right now. So yeah, but self-stigma, let me define that. I don't have an official definition right in front of me, but I know there's several different types of stigma. For one, there's societal stigma. So like societal stigma around autism usually involves a lot of the stereotypes of autism. For instance, that like that we're all into math, or we all like trains, or those are just stereotypes though. I think stigma is more like the negative, the really bad stereotypes. Like for instance, that we're unintelligent, or like because we can't communicate we're unintelligent, or that autism is a disease that needs to be cured, for instance. And those were things that were just in society, they're outside of autistic people. But when an autistic person takes those stereotypes and internalizes them and starts, you know, basically agreeing with those stereotypes, saying, yes, I'm a broken person, or yes, I'm, you know, a diseased person. And it's not always conscious. Like, I think a lot of times it's very subconscious, but once you internalize it, then it becomes self-stigma. And that's what we're talking about specifically. So, lit, I guess that hat was lit. Sorry, it's like, when I, oh no, I just noticed that the chat is not there. I'm so sorry. I can see the chat, but you people can't on the screen. So, let me fix that really quick. There you go. Yay, I can see everybody now. So I'm just gonna scroll up to show everything that we missed here. I want everyone to be seen. So here's everybody. Hey! Thank you, Vincent, for saying I look badass. I think so too. So, alrighty. So like I said, I was looking up on Google to see like what came up when I type in autism and self-stigma. Again, it was mostly about parents and carers and things like, you know, the idea that they're a bad, you know, the autism is because they're a bad parent or they're just spoiling their children or something. And obviously those are some, you know, really bad stereotypes that really do affect the parents. But I didn't see a lot from autistic people, and I want to see more from autistic people because I feel like being around those stereotypes all the time can be damaging to your self-esteem and to your view of yourself in general. So, yeah, I was trying to. Yeah, are you asking what's self-stigma or hat self-stigma? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what you're saying there, because let's see if I can find. You know what? Let me look up a definition, like an actual definition, and I will put it in the chat. The first thing that I get when I type in self-stigma in general is this article called Self-Stigma and the Why-Try Effect Impact on Life Goals and Evidence-Based Practices. And I've read that, and I think it's pretty good, and it's about mental illness specifically, but that kind of explains a bit about what self-stigma is. I don't even know if there's an actual definition. There's a definition of stigma. Here's a definition of stigma, which is an association of disgrace or public disapproval with something, such as an action or condition. So, used in a sentence, depression has become easier to diagnose and seeking treatment does not carry the stigma it once did. So, okay. Yep. That's pretty much what stigma is, but self-stigma is when you start agreeing with that public disapproval of whatever your condition is or whatever your neurology is, or and it can apply to a whole bunch of things. So even like race, for instance, like if there's a negative stigma around like a certain race of people, like you can have self-stigma about that. So it's not necessarily just mental health or neurology. It can be pretty broad, but we are focusing mostly on autism. So don't mind me, I'm going to have a juice box. I got these on sale for 15 cents, and I can see why they're on sale. They're not very flavorful, they're very watered down. They're organic with less sugar, but that just means they have more water. But I'm thirsty, so. So, the reason why I wanted to talk about, and I'm sorry, I feel like my whole system is just like nervous right now, and I'm trying to like get focused. But I struggle personally with self-stigma, and I know this because why do I keep hearing? I hear a bunch of noise outside. It's very distracting. Like when I read this article, which I actually linked to it in the description, and I'm gonna put it in the chat too. This is the article that I mentioned about self-stigma. When I read this, I really identified with it, and it talks about how self-stigma can affect goal-related behavior. So things like like if you have a mental illness, like trying to get help, or let's see, my brain. Oh, here's a good paragraph that kind of describes self-stigma. To experience self-stigma, a person must be aware of the stereotypes that describe a stigmatized group, for example, that people with mental illness are to blame for their disorder, and agree with them. That's right, people with mental illnesses are actually to blame for their disorder. That's just the internalizing example. These two factors are not sufficient to represent self-stigma, however. It's showing a diagram here. The third one is application. This person must apply stereotypes to oneself. For example, I am mentally ill, so I must be to blame for my disorder. This perspective represents self-stigma as a hierarchical relationship. A person with mental illness must first be aware of the corresponding stereotypes before agreeing with them and applying self-stigma to oneself. So, for instance, one stereotype of autism that I have perceived over the years is that we will never amount to whatever other people will amount to. Like, we will always be stuck in the lowest level jobs. We won't achieve, life goals. We won't get married, things like that. And while I consciously disagreed with it, I think I kind of absorbed that view subconsciously. And eventually it did become somewhat conscious, and I started thinking, I obviously know I'm gonna get married, because I'm with Matt, and it's like, this is totally a thing that autistic people do. I've come to terms with that, and it's like, yeah, that's a human thing that we do, and autism doesn't mean we can't get married. But for, other things like achieving my career goals, like, I find myself completely freezing up when I'm searching for jobs, because I'm like, part of it is I have very specific skills, and it's really hard to fit them into other people's, really long lists of what they're looking for. And it's like, there's, some things, I can do a couple things really, really well. Not all these things generally. So, that has honestly stopped me from trying to get a job, along with my actual limitations where, I can only work part-time. I know that, and that's just an energy thing. That's not a I don't believe in myself enough thing. I know that because I've, I can have as much enthusiasm as I want about working, but then if I try to actually work full-time, I would get so burned out and so just utterly miserable. So that's obviously a factor in that, but I do have definitely a sense that I'm just not cut out for careers because I'm autistic or I have these limitations. So let me read some of your messages here. Vincent says, what angers me the most is that people think that autism defines people as some kind of extreme psycho-sociopath that has to be interned. Yeah, it's definitely not true. A lot of us are actually very empathetic people, and we're not we might have some erratic behaviors, but we're not crazy, and we're not anti-empathetic, which is basically what a sociopath is. Yeah. Code Gang, I feel you so much. You say, people don't understand why I have obsessive interests, and then I hate myself for it. Yeah, I can identify with that. Honestly, for the longest time, I tended to keep my obsessive interests to myself, and I still do, just because I recognize that other people might not understand it. I do still share my interests, and I talk about my interests, but I'm just, careful about not doing it too much, because I know that can, scare people away. But honestly, I think obsessive interests are awesome, and I love listening to other autistic people talking about their interests. It's like, that's so cool. I love that you love what you love. That's amazing. Because it's no neurotypical person, I don't think, is gonna love something that much. And that kind of can make you, I don't know. I completely forgot what I was saying. Oh, I was gonna say, an obsessive interest can make you really skilled at something, or at least really knowledgeable about something. So it's like, if I want fun facts about various topics, for instance, Like Matt, he's all over the internet, so he knows just completely random stuff. And I'll ask him, hey Matt, do you know about this? And he'd be like, yeah, let me tell you about it. So he's like a shortcut to Google when I don't want to use the internet, because when I sit down at the computer, I can be there for hours. So Matt is much easier. So, hi, Nason Haywood. Welcome. Space Goblin, I agree. We are the opposite of sociopaths. Abe, I agree. The best solution would be to get a job that utilizes specifically those particular areas that you're really good at. Unfortunately, we know it's not usually easy. Yeah, the getting the job part is usually the most difficult, and some workplaces and employers are starting to recognize that. And so I've actually seen employers start to, instead of having like an interview process, they would have the autistic person or person in general basically show off their skills in an environment. Like if they're going to be like a software tester, they'll have them sit down at a computer and test software and see if they can do the job, because that's the important thing, not how charming they are in an interview. You guys are awesome. Keep loving what you love. Code Gang loves anthropology. Donna Vivier loves horses. Yeah, that's true. Space Goblin, that's a good point. I guess neurotypicals are kind of obsessed with trying to be as normal as possible. There are some weirdos out there, for sure, who are neurotypical, so there definitely are some exceptions to the rule, but I haven't found many of them, because they seem to value blending in or fitting in more. And I think even autistic people want to fit in to some degree. They want to feel a sense of belonging, but they are often so weird that it's just hard to get into any kind of group or to make friends. So, but yeah, definitely neurotypicals seem to value assimilation way more than an autistic person. I think we just want to be sane and we want to be loved. And look at this little bird. He says hello. He loves you. And he's going to peck your eyes out because he loves you! Sorry. Random. Sorry, was that loud? This thing, I don't know if you people are new and haven't seen this little guy, I should show off what he does. I'll use my broken phone to... He jumps. I got my fidget spinner too. Grabbed it last minute because it's like, I might actually need it. Louis A. Rua loves music and animation. Though you're in college for computer science. I mean, hey, you can probably use that for music and animation, can't you? Yeah, Code Gang, I also jump between obsessions. You said 1 month you like Star Wars, another you like some cult movie that is so bad it's good. Like The Room. I haven't seen The Room. I want to see it just because it's bad. I tend to have, like, a lot of interests that I kind of bounce between, too. So... What on earth is ornithology? Now I have to Google it. Darn you for making me interested. Oh, it's a branch of zoology that concerns the study of birds. Yay! Okay, now I'm I have this, okay, speaking of obsessions, and speaking of Star Wars, I don't know if you guys have heard of the, bad lip reading videos, but, they did this one of, I forget which Star Wars, it was one of the newer ones, and they made, I've memorized this whole video because it's so funny and I just got obsessed with it for some reason. And they made Kylo Ren this really creepy, like angsty teenager kind of person, which kind of suits him. And he was just really creepy. He made a puppet, like a finger puppet that looked like a bird, and he wanted to give it to Han Solo. And he's like, I made you a bird. I would have given it to you, but you've never trusted birds. Yeah, I need to get a life. I guess Jesse has seen it. So, I think, going back to self-stigma, I think when I was younger, which was, I was born in the 90s. Oh, hi Autistic Pride, welcome. I'd like to be your friend too. Nice to meet you. Yeah, Kylo is very emo. So, going back to self-stigma, I was born in the 90s, and around that time, I think there was starting to be more awareness of autism, but it was still kind of autism was still kind of a dirty word, as in it was still seen as basically a death sentence for the child and the family, and there was all those, Autism Speaks campaigns out there that were very negative. And there were stereotypes of, autistic people as being unintelligent or low functioning or tantrum throwing children, but that's kind of just general and not really true of all of them. I mean, honestly, I'm considered high functioning. I don't really like the functioning labels, but I just don't know how else to describe it. That's how I've been categorized because I was diagnosed with Asperger's. But even though I'm considered to be on the high functioning ends, and I have had meltdowns and times when I'm not functioning even on a basic level, and when like my behavior is just awful, and I could have been mistaken for someone who at the time would have been diagnosed with autism instead of Asperger's. But back then, I guess I was considered lucky to be diagnosed with Asperger's instead of autism, because they were seen as two separate things, and it's like, at least it's not autism. At least it's not, that bad thing that bankrupts families and, and it's just this mysterious thing that we can't fix and we need a cure for it. So I think being exposed to that, even though I had a good environment, that wasn't pushed on me, I wasn't treated badly, I had supportive parents and friends and teachers. I don't think they stigmatized me in any way, but because that was sort of the societal view, and autism was considered to be or Asperger's was considered to be on the autism spectrum, I kind of internalized some of the negative stereotypes, I think, over time, and started to believe that, maybe I'm not capable of anything. Maybe I'm not going to be able to get a job, or I'm not going to be able to do anything. And there are things I legitimately struggle with. Like, my mom helped me get my first job because she knew that I probably wouldn't have done too well doing all of that by myself. I didn't know how to start, didn't know how to do the interview process and fill out the paperwork, and so like I needed the help for it, for sure, but that doesn't mean that I can't do the work, and I think I did good work when I was working. I worked at Target, by the way, for about 5 years. That's pretty much my only actual work experience. But yeah, I'm trying to kind of unlearn some of those things and to teach myself that I can totally work. I can totally like be capable, and I don't have to work in the same way that other people do. I think one of you mentioned earlier something about working at home, and that's kind of what I really want to go for. Is I would rather work at home, because why would I put myself into a environment where I'm constantly getting sensory overload and there's people around, and it's like I can't focus on my work when there's noise and people and all of those things. Space Goblin. You say you have an autistic friend who gets down on herself when she has meltdowns. To her, it's a disorder she feels she can't control. Yeah, I know the feeling. Like, I don't have, like, I guess the stereotypical kind of meltdowns, but I do have times when my anxiety gets the better of me and my behavior's awful. And, like, I can try to keep it inside, and then it turns into a shutdown where I, like, don't talk to anybody. But it's like, no matter what I do, I'm gonna make people unhappy with my behavior when I'm overwhelmed. So I always feel guilty afterwards, like when after I've had some kind of a meltdown or a shutdown. So I can kind of relate to your friend, and like I understand that. But I think that with more acceptance of autism and a more understanding of what it is, it's like, for instance, an attitude of, this is a meltdown induced by extreme, I don't even want to use the word meltdown. It's like, this is an extreme overwhelmed state and they need something to calm them, versus they're throwing a tantrum. There's a big difference there in attitudes, and that difference in attitudes can also be the difference in how they respond to it. And I think, like, I would rather have someone, you know, lead me to a quiet room and make sure I have everything that I need and that it's sensory friendly, rather than yell at me and say, shut up, stop having a tantrum. It's like, I've maybe in my I don't remember most of my younger years, but I don't think I've had a lot of that other side where it's, you know, negative and being yelled at. Because when I was diagnosed, it's like, okay, we know this is Asperger's. This is not something she's doing on purpose. She's not trying to get attention. She's just totally overwhelmed. CBL Owener. You said you were diagnosed at the beginning of this year. Ever since, you've been noticing your symptoms more and got embarrassed about them, and they stress you out even more in social stuff. Yeah, I can understand that. It's like, when you're first diagnosed, I think it's kind of, it takes a while to get used to it, and it takes a while to get past some of the negative ideas around it, and noticing how different you are definitely can take a toll on you. But I think at some point, like, you know, you need to find people who accept you for who you are, and you need to accept yourself for who you are as well, because that's also a big part of it. And it does take a lot of time. I still have my down moments where I really don't, like, my own symptoms stress me out, and I feel really crappy about the way that I am. So sometimes, not all the time. I love myself when I'm happy. I want to give you a hug, Autistic Pride, but I don't know if you like hugs, so I'm just going to give you, like, a virtual one, because there's no touching involved. Wolf's Brain says he was diagnosed with Asperger's as a little kid by a doctor. You moved and the new doctor was like, autism isn't a thing. He's not autistic. Well, that's just gotta mess with your head a little bit. I was actually diagnosed at age 12, but I consider that kind of young. I felt like I still felt like I was a little kid at age 12. Oh, there's so many. I'm sorry I can't read everybody's messages here. Yeah, eye contact. Yeah, I don't like the eye contact is like expected, that like it's sort of like if you're not making eye contact, you're not listening. Like, that's totally not true. And when I hang out with my autistic friends, like, for a lot of us, it's been ingrained in us to make eye contact and to act neurotypical. And so we still do some of that, but we have moments where it's like, all right, I'm feeling really autistic today and I don't want to look at anybody. And so we just, when we're not making eye contact with each other, it's just a normal thing. It's like, we know we're listening. And it's like you don't have to make eye contact to be able to listen. It's sometimes the opposite with us, where making eye contact will just be more distracting. Yeah, Nathan Haywood, yeah, it's like being misdiagnosed. I don't know if it was a misdiagnosis. Wait, you said you were diagnosed with ADHD, and now your therapist tells you it's Asperger's. Okay, yeah, I don't know your case. Like, it could be both. I think I have ADHD, honestly, but yeah, it can be mistaken for a lot of other things like bipolar or ADHD or OCD. You guys, Autistic Pride, you're so sweet. All you guys are so nice. So, I'm reading some of my notes that I wrote down here. Space Goblin, yeah, I hear a lot from people who were diagnosed pretty late, and I honestly don't know. Like, I've not been, like, I was diagnosed younger, so I don't have the experience of living with it and not knowing what it is, but I think that would be an interesting thing to, oh, Autistic Pride. Stop it. Okay, I think that would make for an interesting film or documentary about specifically people who were diagnosed late. But I don't know enough. I don't think I know enough people in person who I could, like, actually interview them. But if I did, I would definitely include them in my next film. So, reading my notes here. When I was in a transition program for people with disabilities, and I think functioning labels were still used then, and they're still used now, but the students, like, how it worked is we were all split up into different classes, and the reason why I'm explaining this is some of the self-stigma stuff, so it's related. So we were kind of categorized based on how much support we needed, which I guess it kind of makes sense, but then I didn't always get to see the other kids who were, you know, quote-unquote low functioning. We sometimes had events where we would all be together and I would get to see them and talk to them and stuff. But it was just, I don't know, I felt like I should have seen them more. I feel like there wouldn't be, like, if we mixed people together a little bit more. I wonder if some of that would help some of the stigma, because I feel like a lot of the quote-unquote low-functioning people are hidden from society much more than, like, people like me would be. And, you know, if we, I mean, there are some cases, though, where, you know, parents would worry about them being out in public because, like, they could get harassed, they could get picked on. But I wonder if we saw more of people from all parts of the spectrum, like, or if they were, here's the thing, I don't like being out in public, okay, and I'm sure there's a lot of other autistic people who don't, so I'm just trying to think, like, there in some way, it doesn't have to include bringing them out in public and into the world, but if we could see autistic people more from all parts of the spectrum, like, I wonder if maybe that would help dispel some stereotypes about us. Like, for instance, that we're all the same, or that we're all this way or that way. And I think, like, documentaries are a good way of doing it. So I want to keep making films to maybe get more awareness and all that. Like, the positive kind. Yeah, I apologize that my brain is so scrambled right now that I don't know if I'm making sense half the time. So, one goal that I had with this conversation is I actually wanted to hear from you guys, like, your thoughts on, like, what are some ways that we can, I guess, battle self-stigma and stigma in general, definitely. But, you know, it's like when we've internalized a lot of the negative stereotypes, like what are some ways that we can sort of undo that? So I would be open to any thoughts or advice that you guys have, because I actually want to write about this in a book that I'm working on. It's like a sort of autobiography slash book on Asperger's kind of thing. It's mostly like, you know, my Asperger's specifically, what my experience has been, what I've learned over the years, people that I've met on the spectrum. So, like, this is tough for me because it's like I'm in front of you guys right now and I probably seem all like confident, but I have some really horrible like moments where like I feel like I shouldn't like exist because I'm autistic, or like I shouldn't and it's not just the autism, it's like, you know, being, you know, having mental illness and you know, just not being as capable as everybody else in certain things, like, you know, not being able to get a full-time job. It's like I sometimes feel like being lazy for staying at home, even though I'm always doing something. I'm always doing something at home. I mean, I need a lot more rest than the average person. And so, like, lately I've been taking naps for like an hour and a half in the afternoon because I've been recognizing that my mental issues, my anxiety, just it's been skyrocketing due to coming back to Illinois after being in Ohio. It's like a change of living situation. I'm getting used to it, so my anxiety is higher, so I need to recharge. But generally, like, I am doing something most of the time. I'm cooking, or I'm cleaning, or usually I need to do more of this stuff, and I have been, which is good, but I'm doing more like stuff that really I feel like means a lot to me and is really important, like creative stuff, and like working on my book, and making posts on my Asperger's page. I feel like this is kind of, if I had a stay-at-home job, this would be my stay-at-home job. But I still feel like, you know, maybe it's not enough, or I feel guilty for staying at home, because it's like other people, they actually go out, they go in their car, they go out into the world, and they do all of this stuff, and then they come home, and then they do more stuff, and it's like, why can't I do that? Well, first of all, I can't because I'm a sensible person. Those people are crazy. Why would you put yourself through that? But no, really, I still feel like I should be able to do that. So let's see what some of you had to say here. Steph says, she's the leader of the Autistic Gaming Initiative, by the way, she's awesome. She says, I taught myself anytime I got upset over things and self-stigmatized to tell myself, society said these things about me, not me. The more I repeated it, the more I believed it, and I was able to. Yes, there you go. I'm going to seriously just copy and paste that, and if you guys have, let's see, and I'll be looking through some of what you guys said, and any great advice I'm gonna copy and paste into my little document here and say who it was. Well, I probably, unless you don't want to be named, if you don't want to be named in my book, please say so. I could always make you anonymous, but yeah, CBL Owner says normies might not be educated enough about autism. Yeah, that's definitely, I think, contributing to the stigma for sure. Oh, so finishing what Steph said, she said she was able to unlearn some very negative thinking. Space Goblin, that's awesome. So glad you were able to accept that thing about you. Yay. There you go. I'm gonna... Space Goblin says, I gave myself permission to be my autistic self. I love that. Like, that's probably one of the things that could definitely help combat self-stigma. Like, I kind of feel like I didn't let myself be autistic in some regards. Like, for instance, engaging in my interests. Like, I mean, I could, kind of, but it's sort of like I would either engage in them for a really, really long time or just not at all. So it's like, I don't want to waste time that I could be spending socializing or acting like a neurotypical, so I'm not gonna engage in my interests. And then I would do that for like a month, and then I would be absolutely miserable. So I need to allow myself to get interested, or to get into my interests, and to act autistic. And I've even embraced like stimming, and I've always stimmed in some way or another, but it's always been kind of like subtle stimming. And things like drawing, I would draw in class, and I think the teachers at some point didn't let me draw because I was too distracted and wasn't paying attention. So in that case, that wasn't good, but like I needed something there. So like, you know, something to play with, something to draw on. But I've also embraced like, you know, like full body stimming. I'm like, what is it that's appealing about like, or just general body stimming that other autistic people do, because I hadn't done it. And now I actually like can, well, I do like kind of this finger thing, and it's like, this is actually kind of calming. Like when I find myself doing it when I'm anxious, and it's like, oh, that actually works. It calms me down. Or like just running around. Like I like to run around the house, and it just like, I feel like all the anxiety just flies behind me when I do that. So that's a good, I think that's a good healthy autistic thing for me to do, even though really it's not just an autistic thing. Running around, I think, can help anybody. Depression and fear. I could make an entire video about that. I like what Autistic Pride says here. Autism is who we are. Autism is who we are meant to be. It may be hard, but it's great, and society needs to learn to accept us and not make us neurotypical. Because, let's face it, that's not going to work. What? Travis Wolfenberger. Oh, that's, I think Wolf's Brain says, in grade school I got all kinds of guff from teachers and classmates for bouncing my leg. It's like, how's that hurting anybody? I mean, it might be a little odd, but it's not like, that's not hurting anybody. I don't know what you're referring to, Kung Fu Joe. You said, is that perhaps OCD? I don't know. I do have OCD, in case you guys didn't know. But yeah, I think the OCD definitely, it heightens my self-stigma because, what seems to happen with me, if you don't know much about OCD, it includes usually intrusive thoughts and or compulsions, and I have more of the intrusive thoughts, and they're things that like might not necessarily be true, but my brain is like thinking them, and I can't shut them off. I can only change how I respond to them. And so, you know, if someone says, for instance, if someone says, you know, autistic people are lazy or something, it automatically will just add, that thought will be added to my list of intrusive thoughts that pop up in my head. So it's like, autistic people are lazy, autistic people are lazy, autistic people are lazy. So that'll like definitely contribute to my own self-stigma. I think that's been a big part of mine. And I think coping with my OCD is going to help me cope with self-stigma, because then when those negative thoughts or those negative ideas come at me, I'll be able to filter them out and say like, okay, my brain processed it. Now I can say, nope, bye. I disagree with this. Bye. It's just a thought. Sorry, now I'm thinking of Steven Universe and that episode Mindful Education and that lovely song. Look it up if you haven't seen it. It's a great song. It's about basically not letting your thoughts take control of you. Jay Hilst says, how did your parents treat you after diagnosis? Did they accept it as who you are? Did they badger you into trying to be normal? Sorry if I'm just randomly copying people's stuff. I'm like trying to think of ideas of things that I could write in my book. Because these are actually some good questions. And my parents were actually they were very positive about it. Like, it was, I mean, like, my mom had kind of that initial, like, kind of normal reaction of, like, I don't know, it's like kind of being sad and thinking, like, what do we do about, like, what does this mean for Alyssa? And like, is this going to, you know, affect things? And, but she eventually, like, did accept that about me, and, I mean, she accepts me, like, she's accepted me from the get-go, and she realized that, you know, whether I have the diagnosis or not, it's like, I'm still Alyssa, and she's not going to treat me any differently, other than maybe being more accommodating whenever she realizes that something is Asperger's and not me being a butt. So, my parents have been more on the side of being very accepting, and like almost to an extreme, I guess, because I had this dream of being a filmmaker, you know, and it's such a, to most parents, it's kind of a what's the word? Impractical aspiration. And I wanted to make a pirate movie, and I wanted to make it with all my friends, and it was gonna cost money, and it was gonna take, like, you know, we had to build a couple sets and things like that. And my parents were pretty much supportive of that. They're like, why don't we just let Alyssa do this and see what happens? And guess what? Now I have a really badly made amateur film, but that led to me feeling confident enough to make another film, which is Through Our Eyes, Living with Asperger's, which is helping people now. And it's like, this is so great. I don't think that I would have done it if I hadn't made Cursed Waters. And that was because my parents gave my weirdness a chance. So, sorry about my super long explanation, but that is my answer to your question. Okay. Stimming is awesome. Yay for stimming. Oh. Oh, Space Goblin makes a good point here. That NTs are as trapped by their own neurological wiring, like we Aspies are to ours. The difference is we are aware of ours, and they are often blind to theirs. Yeah, I think that's because it's just accepted as normal. Like, is being neurotypical, that's just everybody, supposedly, and autism and Asperger's is sort of pathologized and is seen as like, this is a deviation, this is a disorder, so we must treat it as such. But that might actually lead us to being a lot more aware of it. I feel like maybe neurotypicalness needs to be in the DSM. Maybe that would make people a little more aware of it, because Neurotypicals, I feel like they do actually do a lot of irrational things, or things that are irrational to us or people of other neurologies. Um, but they might not recognize it. So if we were to like take that and put that into a list and be like, here's all the irrational things you do, they might be like, oh, you're right. That is kind of irrational, but hey, this is me and I will accept the way that I am, because we don't want to shame them for the way they are as long as they're not shaming us for the way we are. So, good job feeding the birds. I have a hat. Yep, DSM-6. There will be neurotypicalness in the DSM-6. I don't know what to do about these ears. I don't know if I should have them like up or down. They keep falling. Just have them back. I guess I'm aggressive or something. Yeah. Nathan Haywood says, when I stim, it looks like I'm playing air piano. That's actually kind of awesome. You so like this? Also could be like typing. Sort of. Yep. So right now it is 2 o'clock and I'm going to take a brief break, as I normally do in the middle of my streams, especially if they're 2 hours, because I usually need to get a snack and refuel. So you guys can keep chatting if you like. I have a little new addition to my loading screen here. Oh, where did it go? It's not there. Okay, wait, there it is. So you guys can keep chatting if you want, and I will be back. My energy is running a little on the lower side today, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to complete the stream, but we'll see how I feel when I get back. Yeah, so I'll talk to you guys in about maybe 15 minutes. See ya. Hello, I have returned. I don't really feel like being on camera though, just because my energy is just drained at this point. I thought, oh, I'll feel better after a snack. I do, but not enough to show my face. It's like I'm trying to be aware of my face and what I'm doing and stuff. It's like too much energy. It's like, yeah, I want to be myself on camera, but if I'm not careful, like I don't want to act totally weird just because I'm not paying attention or I don't have enough energy to pay attention. So here's my voice. But yeah, I can see you guys. Do you want the music to still be playing in the background? I turned it down because I know some people don't like music in the background of stuff. But anyway, so I can probably keep on streaming until about 2:30 Central Time or 3:30 Eastern Time. Because I did want to. Oh, here we go. I'm just telling my friend I can keep streaming until 2:30 because I showed up a little bit late. Yeah, so a couple of things that I thought of. I realized also the whole self-stigma thing, it can leak into lots of different areas of life from my experience. Like, for instance, okay, I'll keep the music down then. For instance, oh, sorry, that was my alarm. Okay. Like, it can pretty much make you not really want to take care of yourself. Like, if I feel crappy about myself, like if I feel like, I'm an autistic person who doesn't deserve to exist kind of thing, I'm a lot less likely to make sure that I'm eating well or getting enough sleep and things like that. And so I think combating self-stigma, you can actually kind of do this backwards, where I mean, it's like if you can treat the self-stigma first, but if you're not taking care of yourself, it's like I know that when I don't take care of myself, I will feel worse about myself, if that makes sense. Like, my anxiety will increase if I am not taking care of myself. So it's like, even if I feel crappy about myself, if I make sure I'm eating well, sleeping well, getting exercise, it's like, doesn't matter how crappy I feel, as long as I'm doing that, that's going to make me less likely to feel crappy about myself. So yeah, I have hair, and oh, I need to make a bald version now of my character. Yeah, I definitely encourage people like to always take care of themselves. I like to check on them and make sure that they are, because I know that, like, again, the not eating well, not sleeping can really have a negative effect on you. It's easy to get depressed or anxious when you're not feeling your best. So yeah, about the autism diagnosis thing. I think it's useful in some cases where, for instance, if you need legit proof that you need help for something, like getting in. When I was in college, for instance, I got accommodations because I had a diagnosis of Asperger syndrome. So I got, extended time on tests. I got to do my test in a separate room because they acknowledge that's, that I have a legit excuse for that. But some people, like, especially if they're, like older people, and it's like they don't really need accommodations per se. I mean, they probably still, it depends. I don't know. I'm not an old person. I don't know. But I mean, there are some people who feel like they don't really need it, like, because it's just knowing that they are on the spectrum can help, but you don't even really, I think, need a diagnosis to tell you that. I feel like a lot of us are pretty self-reflective enough to be able to figure it out ourselves. But yeah, like, if a diagnosis, even if it doesn't get you accommodations or anything fancy like that, if it helps you to recognize, um, to pretty much officially acknowledge that you are on the autism spectrum, um, that can help you, I think, accept yourself in some ways. Or it could have the opposite effect. I mean, there's some people who they might react badly to a diagnosis because it still is kind of seen as a disorder thing. My reaction to my diagnosis was, I pretty much, I was just like, oh, this is a thing. Well, moving on with my life. Like, it didn't really affect me very much, besides on just the subconscious level, and I recognized, like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna need to be put in special ed and all this stuff, and, I was homeschooled for a while, so I hadn't even really needed special ed until I was going to public school in middle school, but I think that might have begun the process of me separating myself from other people and recognizing that, I'm different, whether that's a good or a bad thing. There were definitely there were both good and bad things about it. Like, I want to think more about the good stuff though. Like, I think I related to a lot of the weirdos a whole lot better. I was probably more accepting of people who weren't normally accepted at my middle school. Like, I thought, people that others might normally not even, give the time of day, I would think that they're awesome. I remember there was this blind girl at the school, and I was just super curious about her. It's like I wanted to get to know her. I thought she was kind of cool, and but like, I don't know how to put it. It's like I feel like there was no sense of like judging that person or anything like that. It's just I thought, oh, this is so cool, someone who's different from me, and I want to get to know them, and like I ask them questions about like, how do you get around, and can you show me how to use some braille and stuff like that, just because I was interested in that. It's like I thought cool people, well, they are cool people. I thought different people who are different from me were just the coolest thing ever, and I wanted to be their friends, because it's like, anybody could make friends with someone who's like them. That's easy. But for me, I found it more natural to make friends with people who are different, because I don't know, they're cool. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know. English. Where did my English go? Hello, English? English, are you in here? No, not in here. No. I'm sorry, I lost my English. That's the only language I know how to speak, but I lost it anyway. I get sometimes when I'm not feeling well, I get kind of like self-conscious that I'm talking too much or not speaking correctly. There was this club in my middle school that was like the best thing ever, in my opinion. It was called the In Club, where basically everybody's in, and it was pretty much meant to purposely include people who, had disabilities or autism, or people who weren't normally accepted in all the cool groups and stuff like that. But I thought that group itself was really cool, and we did lots of fun stuff. And my memory's a little fuzzy, so I can't remember precisely what we did. I just know it was a really fun group. To answer your question, Jay Hilst, sorry, was your name Jeff? I was trying to remember. I think some people were aware of what Asperger's was. The only people I knew of on the spectrum, or at least who had specifically Asperger's at my school, was me and this other kid named Max. And I was like Max's biggest fan, because it's like I didn't know anybody else on the spectrum before I met this person. And he had this huge like coin collection. Like that was his interest and his hobby. He liked to collect just loose change, and he had this big, huge. It was like a big pencil pouch full of change. And during class, he was allowed to pretty much, take the change out of the bag and just stack it and organize it, because it kind of helped him focus. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It's like, whoa, dude, you have so much change. That's crazy. And his favorite TV show was Codename Kids Next Door, and he would talk about it, and I would ask him, have you seen this episode or this episode? Because I watched it too. So as far as I know, like, people who knew, like me and Max, were aware of Asperger's. But I don't know. I feel like I think I was lucky, because my school was, I think, pretty accepting of people who were different generally. There were still some jerky kids, obviously, but whether there was awareness of Asperger's or not, I feel like everybody was really patient with me, and like they knew. I think just because they knew I was in special ed, they gave me a little more leeway in terms of recognizing that. Sorry, I can't. My brain. Where did my brain go? Well, you know what I mean. They were nicer to me. So it's 2:30 right now. 2:30 p.m. Central Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and the person who is going to be streaming next is Corla Wolf. Thank you, Corla Wolf, for agreeing to take over for me early, because that's awesome, and I really appreciate it, and I need to sleep so bad. But yeah, this live stream was for the Autistic Gaming Initiative, so if you want to help us out, there's some links down below. I think there's a link for donating to the Autism Women's Network and the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. And they're really awesome charities, so please check them out. They're approved by autistic people as well, because they're very helpful. So yeah, it was great talking to you guys, and you gave me some great ideas too for my book, so thank you for that. And it was great meeting you all, and you're all so nice. Why are you so nice and so interesting? Yeah, I know the loading screen is funny. I need a different like screen for when I don't want to be on camera, so I don't just crack people up with this screen. So, but yeah, you all have a great day. Bye bye.